On today's show, Alperen Sengun and the Turkish national team EuroBasket preview.
Okay, Alperen Sengun.
What are the expectations coming into the tournament and how EuroBasket can help prepare Alpi ahead of a title run this season? It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. On today's show, we're going to be previewing 2025 EuroBasket with a big focus on the Turkish national team. Of course, because of one Alperen Sengun. So we'll be following the Turkish team very closely here throughout the EuroBasket group stage, as well into the knockout round, assuming Turkey advances, which once we get into their opponents here in their group, I think Turkey's got a pretty solid chance to move things forward. So we'll talk about kind of expectations going into the tournament, what this tournament can do for Alperen Sengun ahead of this upcoming NBA season and the Rockets, potential title run here with the addition of Kevin Durant. And then we'll get to some of the ancillary stuff and talk about, things like the EuroBasket schedule and how to watch the games and who some of the other key players are for Turkey, all that good stuff. First, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Just head on over to FanDuel.com, use the app, all that good stuff. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. So let me start with really quickly. What is EuroBasket? For anybody who is unfamiliar with what EuroBasket is, we've covered it a little bit here on the show each and every offseason, or well, the offseasons where it's happened since Alperen Sengun joined. But basically, it's the main basketball competition for European national men's teams. It's held every 2 years. And basically it comes out, there's more or less two phases of it. You start off with 24 national teams all competing. There's the group stage, which involves a bunch of different teams all put into six different groups. Sorry, 4 different playing groups of 6, I should say. And you play everybody in your group once, basically round robin format. And then the bottom 2 teams in each group get eliminated, and then you advance to the knockout round, which is a 16-team tournament, single elimination style, until you get to the championship round. It's that simple. So it's a big time honor for national players who, have that pride in wanting to play for and represent their respective countries. And there are going to be a lot of incredibly talented NBA players taking, center stage here in EuroBasket 2025, Alperen Sengun being one of them, obviously, for the Turkish national team. So want to get into, in a minute, we'll get into kind of some expectations, both for Alpi and for the Turkish team. We'll get into some of the numbers and whatnot, but I want to start with just the fact that Turkey has played a handful of games already. And Alperen Sengun has looked flat out awesome in these games so far. So there have been friendly matches so far against Germany, then Lithuania, and then Montenegro. And so the friendly matches don't count. They're essentially the preseason version of games for the Euro Cup tournament. And Sengun has gone out and flat out dominated in each one of these games. So in his first game against Germany, which was unfortunately ultimately a loss for Turkey, Sengun had 25 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists on 8 of 11 shooting. Then the next game in a matchup with Lithuania against Jonas Valanciunas, Sengun posted 25 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists on 9 of 17 shooting from the floor. And then his most recent outing in just 24 minutes of run, Sengun had 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists and 4 steals in the win against Montenegro. And that includes going up against Nikola Vucevic, who is still a Chicago Bull for some reason. So Sengun's been playing against some NBA level talent. Against Germany, it was Franz Wagner and Dennis Schroeder and Rockets legends Dennis Schroeder and Daniel Tice, both former Houston Rockets. But that's kind of how EuroBasket works. Is every team is going to have probably a handful of NBA players on it. And so there will be names that you'll recognize as you move through the tournament. But seeing the way that Sengun has played, even though those friendly games didn't really count for anything, just seeing how aggressive he's been out there, the way that he's moving a little bit, some of the ways that he's attacking offensively, his ability to finish at the rim coming back, which is a welcome development given the fact that that was one of the talking points that he discussed in his interview the other day on Socrates, basically talking about how he was putting renewed focus into the offensive side of the basketball this offseason and, hopefully giving Rockets fans that confidence that this next year he'll have a bounce back season as far as his efficiency is concerned, in particular with his shot making in and around the basket, which certainly took a significant nosedive this past year. But he gave his reasons for that. And so far, at least through 3 games in 3 friendly qualifier, friendly matchups ahead of EuroBasket, ahead of the group stage, things have looked really promising for Alperen Sengun. He looks like a player that is ready to level up once again in his NBA career. He's flat out looked like the best player on the floor in each one of these 3 games that he's played so far. Against Germany, against Lithuania, and against Montenegro, he was absolutely the undisputed best player on the floor for either team in all 3 matchups. And that's what you want to see out of your blossoming star, Alperen Sengun, earning all-star honors this past season in the NBA. But you don't want a level of complacency to set in, right? And I don't think for a second that that's going to be the case whatsoever with Alp. But, the fact that we're already seeing signs here in the dog days of the offseason of an Alperen Sengun that may be poised to have another significant step forward in his game. One of those question marks about Alp that we discussed in his, kind of season review pod that we did, and just kind of one of the questions about him moving forward is just how much better can he be, right? He's already cemented himself as an all-star big man, as a big man that can anchor a top 5 defense, as a big man that was one slot away, one vote away from earning all NBA honors, right? So arguably already a top 3 to top 5 big man in the NBA at just 23 years old. He just turned 23. So how much better can he ultimately become? And that's what the really exciting thing is here about EuroBasket, because one, it's the dog days of the NBA offseason. And so like Rockets fans, we're all fiending for some basketball. So please, if you're desperate for some basketball at this time of year, you've got to be tuning in to support Turkey and to support Alperen Sengun in Turkey's pursuit of winning EuroBasket and walking away with that gold medal. And on top of that, it's also going to be a great opportunity for Rockets fans to kind of, again, see what Sengun has been working on and to give a little bit of, some hopefully positive foreshadowing for what is to come this upcoming season. Do want to talk about expectations for both Turkey and Alperen Sengun going into EuroBasket, the tournament this time around, as well as we'll get into some of the extra stuff like, what the schedule looks like, how to watch the games, other key players to pay attention to on Turkey's roster, all that good stuff. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, one day only, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Hey, maybe you're feeling really good about CJ Stroud and the Texans and you want to call them the division champs this early on. Go for it. Ride with your gut. Maybe you just want to take a look at the outright favorites to win the Super Bowl this season. Right now at the top of the pack, You have the Ravens and Eagles both plus 700. Right behind them, you have the Bills at plus 750, the Chiefs at plus 800, and then in distant fifth place, you have the Detroit Lions at plus 1,100. So for all those odds and so much more, visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's get into some expectations for EuroBasket for both Turkey and for Alperen Sengun as an individual. Now, I will say something that was maybe a little surprising to me. I wasn't really expecting this, but Turkey is not one of the teams favored to win EuroBasket 2025, according to at least, I'm going to call it credentialed media. I'm not sure how it's done overseas, but I'm just going to call it credentialed media. But over on the official EuroBasket FIBA website, there was a survey conducted with, I guess, accredited media. And the overwhelming favorite to win EuroBasket is Serbia. And that is Nikola Jokic. So Serbia with 73.1% of the available votes as the favorite to win it all. But behind them, and this was a little surprising to me, you had Germany with 10% of the votes, France with 6.2% of the votes, Latvia with 3.1% of the votes, Greece with 2.3% of the votes, and then Spain with just 1.5% of the available votes. So at least in the eyes of the media overseas, Turkey is not even a top 6 threat to win EuroBasket this summer. And that part is a little disappointing. And I really don't know if that's because the media are underrating this Turkish team, but at least in comparison to some of the other teams in this group that Turkey is in, I believe they're in the A group, if I'm not mistaken. But the group that Turkey is in right now, they're clearly, I think, the second best team behind Serbia. That's the one team in their group that feels like they are clearly ahead of Turkey just from a sheer talent perspective. Yeah, Group A. Sorry, I had to make sure I found that. So their group includes Serbia, mentioned them, Chechnya, Estonia, and Portugal. And Turkey certainly feels like the second best team easily outside of that group, although there's an overwhelming amount of talent, Nikola Jokic included, on the Serbian team. So as far as expectations go, it doesn't seem like Turkey is a favorite to win the tournament, but I will say that I'm a little shocked that they were not viewed as like one of the top 5 or 6 teams to maybe make a push for the title. So we'll see how those predictions ultimately shake up once Turkey gets to the eventual knockout round, because I think they'll be fine. They'll make it out of group play. We'll talk about how the group play structure and all that works in a little bit, as well as the dates and times of their other opponents. But on an individual basis, for Alperen Sengun in particular, I think that EuroBasket will be an amazing opportunity for Rockets fans to see what Alp has worked on so far this offseason. Already talked about the increased level of his finishing in these 3 friendly games so far that he's played, and how effective he's looked there. But it's also really cool seeing the other elements of Alp's game, right? Because he's so much more than just like just dump the ball down to him and let him score, right? Sengun does a lot of stuff on the floor. He had an absolutely fantastic feed to Adam Bona in their last matchup against Montenegro. Just completely, perfectly placed, lofted the ball over the top of the defense, and Bona, who can jump out of the gym and has got a great wingspan, just goes up and yams it over the top of a defender. And like, I saw that connection, and I immediately started thinking, man, watching Sengun lob the ball up to Clint Capela is going to be so sweet, because that double big lineup, you can rest assured that we are going to see a Sengun double big lineup at some point this season that the Rockets are going to trot out there, either because it's just favored in a certain matchup, or they want to throw a haymaker at the opponent, or if Steven Adams is resting and they just go with Capela as the double big kind of dynamic here. And hearing even that Sengun kind of likes playing at the 4, right? He's playing at the 4 quite a bit with the Turkish national team, right? They have other guys out there who do run the 5, with Sengun playing more in that 4 role alongside him, or alongside them. And so I do think that that's kind of like, they're leaning into that a little bit. So Sengun's playmaking was on display, as well as his defense. He had one play where he got out to the 3-point line and blocked a shot and then went streaking the other direction. Turkey recovered the basketball, kicked it out to him on the break. He gets the ball on the outlet and then dunks it home on the other end. And so seeing this version of Alperen Sengun that wasn't there quite just yet, right? Because he hadn't gone through kind of the bodily transformation, and he hadn't gone through the rigors of 2 years of coaching under Ime Udoka, right? It was a very different Alperen Sengun the last time that Turkey competed in EuroBasket. And so this version of Sengun feels like he's really going to be, he's obviously leveled up his game on the defensive side of the basketball and has put a renewed focus in the offensive side of things this offseason. And so far, through 3 friendly games, it looks like it's all kind of paying dividends. For me, a few of the things that I'm looking for specifically is Sengun talked about having to balance, his energy, right, on the defensive and offensive side of things. I want to see how he balances that in EuroBasket, right, where he's very clearly the best player on the Turkish team. And by a, no disrespect to the rest of the team, by a comfortable margin, right? He is the team's best player. How does that look, right? Is he going to get 20 to 25 shot attempts a game? He should. Is he going to command all the touches, or are there going to be moments where Shane Larkin and Cedi Osman and Furkan Korkmaz are trying to take over the game when they probably shouldn't be, right? 2 years ago, Sengun was still a little younger. Those guys were, more veteran, established NBA players at that point. Shane Larkin was the veteran ball handler of the Turkish team at that point. Sure, like maybe Sengun deferred, plenty to them, or they had their moments where they were trying to take over games. To me, this is an opportunity for Sengun to be like, I'm the guy, right? I'm the Michael Jordan of this Turkish team. Give me the ball and get out of the way, kind of thing, right? And that's not even from a selfish point of view, just that Sengun is the most talented player on the team. Let him run his game, right? Let him do what he does, command double teams or score the ball at the rim, draw fouls, create opportunities for his teammates, right? It almost at times feels like any possession that doesn't go through Sengun's hands when he's on the floor is not necessarily a wasted possession, but not quite as good of a possession as you could get if you involve Sengun in some capacity, either as a screener, as a facilitator, as the play finisher, however you want to utilize him. When he's on the floor, I want to see the Turkish team play through him, right? Selfishly, and also because it kind of feels like it's the best strategy for the Turkish team to be able to win at the end of the day. So I want to see that. I want to see how he balances the offensive and defensive kind of demands of EuroBasket play. I also want to see if the 3-ball is real, right? Like, he has been working a lot. There's been a lot of reporting about his improved outside shooting this offseason, that it's been a focus for him this offseason. And if Sengun shows, even in, a brief amount of time, because EuroBasket only lasts for about a month, give or take, here, at tail end of August, and then for, a chunk of September, if he can show over this next month or so that the 3-ball is legitimate, right? That he has worked on it, that he's taking confident 3-pointers, and that he's not second guessing himself or like double clutching, or Ime's favorite where he's pump faking and nobody's there and like it doesn't actually do anything. I just want to see what the 3-ball looks like for Alpi, and if we can get a taste of him actually having a reliable 3-pointer coming into this NBA season. And the last bit here, and this is the part that it's less so an expectation and more just, I think, a major benefit for all the players that are playing in EuroBasket, all the European dudes playing in EuroBasket, is that, oftentimes we hear about the NBA and how some players kind of have to work themselves into quote unquote game shape. Right. I think that the players that are playing in EuroBasket have the benefit, right, of you play in EuroBasket, assuming you don't get, knocked out in group stage play, right? You'll play in EuroBasket probably until like at least mid-September or possibly even late September, right? You finish up EuroBasket, and then you have maybe a week off before you're immediately thrown into media day, training camp. You already have that you've already built up your body doing all the EuroBasket stuff to where you're not just starting with training camp and then preseason and then the NBA where you're still, you still need 5 or 10 games to really, get your second wind, get your legs under you, all that stuff. And I think that's a really big benefit for Alperen Sengun here, is to be able to come into the season having already worked up a pretty good, worked himself into kind of more or less like early season form, mid-season form, if you will, by the time opening night actually happens. And so I like that. And I think it's certainly beneficial for Alp in a year where the Rockets are going to have title aspirations and every game is going to matter from a seeding perspective in a loaded Western Conference, gunning for that top spot right there with the Thunder and with the Nuggets, probably all trying to secure that number 1 seed in the West. And so being able to start things off strong, right? Having, maybe worked out some of the kinks in his game, worked on the finishing, worked on the 3-point shooting, all that stuff during EuroBasket, as well as playing against some really top tier upper echelon competition. That's the other benefit, right? It's like once you get out of group stage, like the teams that you're going to be playing are going to be very legitimately good teams. And it's going to be an absolute gauntlet for Turkey to try and advance and try to, either earn themselves a spot on the podium at least, or potentially, winning the entire thing outright. And that kind of test before the NBA season even begins is a great way, I think, for Alp to set the tone kind of for himself internally for a season that has title aspirations, hopefully, at the end of the line. Coming up, want to get into Turkey's schedule, how to watch the games if you're so interested, as well as key players to look out for, the other teams, all that good stuff. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Open Phone. Look, if you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time that you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a different service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait around? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app, and their shared inbox feature is a total game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And Open Phone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's Open Phone, openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Let's go ahead and wrap up our third segment here, talking about the schedule. We'll get into how to watch the games and everything, as well as some of the other key players on the Turkish team to pay attention to. I already mentioned a couple of them throughout the episode, but we'll get into some specifics here in just a moment. First things first, the dates for the tournament, at least the only set dates right now, are the group stage dates. So the first game of the tournament will be against Latvia, the team actually hosting the tournament, side note, I think that's good that they're getting that one out of the way early, because I'm misremembering this, but I could have sworn like 2 years ago, the first go around of us watching EuroBasket and watching Alperen Sengun play, I could have sworn also we might have had 2 separate summers of EuroBasket, because I feel like Alp played EuroBasket like 21, right? 21, 23, and 25 now. Maybe he didn't play in 20. I think he did play in 21. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked now. Should have looked that up before I hit record. Gatlin. All right. So the first game is against Latvia, and I think it's good to get the home team out of the way first, because that's going to be the team that has the most support of fans in the stadium, and might get some like home cooking from the officials or something like that. So having that be the first game, get out of the way early on, I think is good for Turkey. They play that game Wednesday, August 27th at 10 a.m. So 10 a.m. Central Time. So that's 11 Eastern or 8 a.m. on the West Coast. So I'm going to do all these times in Central Time. So I apologize. If you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, do the math yourself. Next game after the Wednesday game against Latvia will be Friday, August 29th at 6:45 in the morning against the Czech Republic. So that'll be their next game. For their third game of the group play stage, it'll be against Portugal on Saturday, August 30th at 1:15 in the afternoon. Their fourth game against Estonia will be Monday, September 1st at 6:45 a.m. And their fifth and final game, and easily the most difficult of all these games, will be against Serbia Wednesday, September 3rd at 1:15 in the afternoon. And that's going to be the one you definitely don't want to miss. Now, unfortunately, if group play is all but kind of decided at that point, and it looks like, Turkey and Serbia are both going to advance with no issue, then that might be a game that teams decide to rest their players a little bit ahead of the knockout round. We may see that in effect. But if we don't, right, if there's still like a chance for a toss up or a chance for, one of those two teams to be eliminated, then we might be in store for a really, really fun showdown between Alperen Sengun and Nikola Jokic in that game in particular. Running through these teams really quickly, Serbia has the most NBA talent on its roster by far. I listed out all the players with either that are currently in the NBA or have had NBA experience at some point in their career. Serbia comes in with 5 players. They've got Jokic, they've got Bogdan Bogdanovic, Vasilij Micic, Nikola Jovic, and Nikola Topic. So 5 different current day right now NBA players on the Serbian roster, which is why they're the overwhelming favorites. Also, Jokic is, the best player on the face of the planet. That's why they're the overwhelming favorites to win EuroBasket. Estonia and Portugal, at least unless I missed somebody, don't have an NBA player on their rosters. The Czech Republic, I apologize, has Tomas Satoransky, who played in the NBA for a little while, a handful of seasons, like 6 or 7 years. And then Latvia has Davis Bertans, the Latvian laser, and Rockets legend, Rodions Kurucs. So those are the fellow NBA competition on the other side of the bracket. And the important players to know if you're following along Alperen Sengun and the Turkish national team, you're going to want to pay attention to, I said his name earlier, Adem Bona. He is like energy personified coming off the bench. He plays for the 76ers. They got him. And he was a guy that I kind of wanted the Rockets to maybe take a look at. And he was a name that's been on our radar for like a couple years. Turkish fans have been hyping this guy up, and for good reason. He looks like he's going to be a really, solid kind of player, NBA caliber player. It's really solid on defense. Cedi Osman, Furkan Korkmaz, who neither of them are currently signed to a team in the NBA, but they are fresh off their most recent NBA stints, and both still very solid parts of this Turkish national team. I don't know where you'd go. I think you got to probably kind of argue that like it's a toss up between probably Cedi Osman and Shane Larkin for Turkey's second best player, behind Alperen Sengun, but I guess it kind of just depends on the day. Korkmaz has some moments where he'll be able to, lock in and he'll look like he's Turkish Kobe Bryant out there for a couple possessions, and then he'll struggle other possessions. So we'll see what Korkmaz ultimately looks like. And then Shane Larkin is the lead guard for Turkey. He's their point guard. He's their table setter, their floor general, and the guy that takes ill-advised potential game-tying threes, like he did at the end of the match, the friendly match against Germany. I don't know if I'm ever going to forgive Shane. You know what? I can forgive Shane Larkin for that shot because it was a friendly match. If it had been in the actual tournament, whether group play or knockout stage, I would have never been able to forgive Shane Larkin. Shout out to our guy, Frank, a good friend of the program, who gave Shane Larkin some grief for it on social media. And Shane Larkin came into his mentions after like name searching himself on social media to see what people were saying about that shot. Spoiler, it wasn't good. So those are some of the names to pay attention to. And then I want to give a shout out to Sertac Shanli as well. Shanli, because, I kind of feel like, right? Sengun had been playing in kind of this, more old school style double big lineup, for years with the Turkish national team before coming over to the NBA, where everything is now a bit more downsized. There's a lot more wings, less bigs. And now we're kind of transitioning back into an era of the NBA where bigs and specifically some of these double big lineups were more prominent. And, I remember a couple years ago watching Sengun function and work really well with Shanley as a double big front court, kind of thinking maybe, Sengun, he's playing the 5 full time right now. And that's certainly like what his role is on an NBA team, given his talent level. But being able to situationally play the 4 with another bigger player next to him has certain advantages, right? And we saw it, we've seen it with the Turkish team. And now we're starting to see the benefits, and the Rockets kind of reaping the rewards from running the double big stuff at the NBA level. So maybe taking a page out of the Turkish national team's handbook, right? This past season, and really experimenting with the stuff between Sengun and Adams, and now they'll have that lineup again, plus Capela to throw into the mix this next year. So those were a few of the players to pay attention to again. And I will say, with like full transparency, right? I don't follow the Turkish national team. This is my interpretation of the important players. There are going to be, shout out to our very loyal Rockets Turkish fans, Turkish Rockets fan base. There we go. That's the much better way to say that. It's a good thing I don't get paid to talk for a living. But you guys are, have the true insight. So, if you guys want to share your thoughts, your comments on the Turkish national team in the YouTube comments, let other Rockets fans know who to be on the lookout for, what your pros and cons are with some of these guys. And we'll be right here, along for the whole ride, recapping each game that Turkey plays. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun being able to, watch some high level basketball and being able to follow Alperen Sengun and cheer him on as he plays for his home country. And hopefully he'll be, earning a medal for Turkey when it's all said and done. But with that, that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, I want all your thoughts about Alperen Sengun, about the Turkish national team, about EuroBasket in the YouTube comments. Who is Turkey's second best player? Am I on the money with it being Cedi, Osman, or Shane Larkin, or am I completely off base there? Maybe it is Boda, and maybe he just needs to be put in the starting lineup. Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.